I was heading home after a late shift at the diner, the streets nearly empty. My usual route was quiet, dim, and lined with flickering streetlights that cast long shadows. The only sound keeping me company was the soft rhythm of my own footsteps. I had my hands stuffed into my jacket pockets, lost in my thoughts, when someone suddenly grabbed my arm. "Keep walking. Pretend you're my husband," a woman hissed, her voice sharp and urgent. I turned, startled, about to ask her what was going on, but one look from her froze me in place. Her eyes were pleading, but behind them was a clear warning. Her grip was tight, her fingers trembling. Out of instinct, I looked behind us. A man stood across the street beneath a buzzing street. He was watching closely, his expression unreadable, his stance tense, his hands deep in the pockets of his coat. Something about him radiated danger. So, I played along. I started walking again, rigid at first, unsure what I was getting involved in. She slipped her arm through mine and leaned gently against me. Slowly, I matched her pace, letting my body relax into the act. Neither of us said a word for several blocks. Her breathing was shallow but steady, like she was forcing herself to stay calm. We passed shuttered storefronts, a darkened park, and still, I could sense the man lingering behind until suddenly, he was gone. By the time we reached a turn near my apartment building, she released my arm and exhaled, her breath shaky. "Thank you," she murmured, brushing her hair back behind her ear. Her voice had softened now. "You, all right?" I asked, studying her face. She looked to be around my age, maybe slightly older. She wore a navy coat and worn jeans, but it was her eyes that stood out, heavy with pain, sharp with intelligence, and shadowed by caution. She gave a small nod, then hesitated before shaking her head. "He followed me from the subway. I didn't know what else to do." "You did the smart thing," she smiled faintly, pressing her teeth into her bottom lip. "I'm Elena," she said, holding out her hand. I told her my name. We stood there longer than necessary, awkward but not uncomfortable. She let out a nervous laugh. "God, I probably scared the hell out of you." "Not scared, just surprised, but I'm glad I could help." That night, I couldn't get her out of my head. Her face appeared in my mirror as I brushed my teeth, behind my eyelids as I tried to sleep. She looked terrified and fearless all at once, and I couldn't forget the way her hand had held mine, warm and trembling. A few days passed, and I saw her again by chance, or so I thought. She was sitting alone at the coffee shop near my building, staring out the window at her untouched drink. When she noticed me, she smiled and waved me over. "You live around here, don't you?" "Yeah, just across the street." We ended up sitting together, talking like old friends. She told me about her job in publishing, her dog named Murphy, the messy apartment she never had the energy to clean. I told her about my night shifts at the diner, how I'd once dreamed of being a graphic designer, and how I was saving for a course to try again. That turned into a routine. We kept meeting, talking, laughing. She'd bring me leftovers she accidentally cooked too much of. One night during a blackout, we sat on her building's front steps, with candles and red wine, listening to the rain and exchanging secrets. It wasn't until 6 weeks in that I noticed the ring. She'd never worn it before, not once. But there it was, simple, unmistakably in her finger. I stared at it, stunned. It felt like betrayal in the shape of gold. She caught me looking, and didn't flinch. "I didn't lie," she said gently. "I just didn't tell you everything." "You're married?" I asked, heart pounding. "Yes." "Was it the man who followed you that night?" She shook her head. "No. That was someone else." "You never said you were married." "And I never said I wasn't," she replied, voice low, heavy with something, guilt maybe, or sorrow. "It's complicated," she added. "That's what people say when they don't want to be honest." I stood to leave. She reached out. "Please, let me explain." I stayed. She told me about Mark, her husband, a lawyer. Brilliant, cold, emotionally distant. Their marriage was more of an arrangement than a relationship, a carefully structured life, filled with beige furniture and mechanical affection. "He doesn't hurt me," she said, "but I vanish a little more each day with him." "And what am I then?" I asked. She hesitated. "You're the first person in years who made me feel like I still exist." I should have walked away. I should have said something wise, protective, self-respecting, but I didn't. We kept meeting. It wasn't lust. It wasn't just comfort. It was something deeper and more dangerous. She needed someone to see her. I needed someone to need me. Together, we carved out a quiet space, untouched by the world's definitions. In that space, she wasn't someone's wife. I wasn't someone crossing a moral line. We were simply us, We kissed for the first time in her apartment on a rainy Wednesday. The lights were soft. Her hair smelled like lavender. Her eyes asked if it was okay. I didn't have the strength to say no. That night was slow, quiet, filled with breathless pauses and things left unsaid. We didn't speak words like love. We avoided anything that might shatter the illusion we'd built, but illusions never last. One morning, I saw him. Marquis was outside the diner, dressed perfectly polished shoes, crisp suit. He walked in, ordered black coffee, and took a seat at the counter. I froze, spatula in hand, pulse racing. He looked at me and said, "Adam, right." I nodded. "She talks about you," he said flatly. "You're the guy from that night, the one she used as a shield." I had no words. He stood, left a tip, and as he walked out, he added, "She's always chasing ghosts. Don't let her make one out of you." That evening, I waited by her building. She never showed. I called. I texted. No answer. A week passed. Then 2. Eventually, I received a letter. No return address. Just a few lines in her handwriting. "Some lives can't survive out in the open. What we had was real, but I can't keep looking for freedom in other people. I need to find it in myself. Thank you for reminding me I'm still alive." That was it. No final goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. Sometimes I still pass that coffee shop and glance at the table by the window. The one where we first talked. The light still hits it the same way, and I wonder, does she ever think of the rain? Of the way our hands fit together? Of how two people can mean everything to each other and still become nothing? I don't hate her. I don't hate myself, but I've learned something. When someone grabs your arm in the dark and pulls you into their world, sometimes you save them, and sometimes they take you under with them.